So, let's go. Number 1, the dead rocket we lost track of. Right now, while you go about your week, something we built is falling toward the moon. Not a meteor, not an asteroid, not some ancient rock that's been drifting since the solar system was born. A rocket. Our rocket. A piece of machinery with a serial number and a launch date and a company logo tumbling end over end through the dark, lined up on a collision course with another world. It went up on January 15th, 2025. The bright part of the mission, the part that made the news for a day, was the 2 little landers riding on top, on their way to touchdown on the moon. This is the part that carried them. The upper stage, the workhorse. Once it finished its job, it was supposed to do the boring, responsible thing every spent rocket stage is supposed to do: fall back toward Earth, hit the atmosphere, and burn up into nothing over the ocean. It didn't. Instead, it wandered off. It slipped into a long, lazy orbit way out where the moon lives, and it kept going around, quiet and forgotten for over a year. Nobody was tracking it. Nobody was worried about it. It was just gone, the way a set of keys is gone until the exact moment it becomes a problem. And here's the part that should bother you more than it does. The person who found it isn't a government. It isn't a space agency with a war room full of screens. It's one guy. An independent astronomer who writes his own tracking software, sitting with his own data, who noticed that this particular piece of junk wasn't going to keep circling forever. He ran the numbers. The numbers said the orbit was going to end. Not in space. On the surface. So next week, on August 5th, this thing stops being a satellite and becomes an impact. You're not going to get a warning on your phone. There's no countdown clock on the news. Most people will find out it happened, if they find out at all, from a headline the day after. And that's the first thing that should get under your skin here. Something the size of a truck is about to slam into the moon. We know almost exactly when, and it's being treated like a footnote. Keep that feeling, because it gets stranger from here. Number 2, 5,400 miles an hour. Let's talk about how hard this thing is going to hit, because the word crash is doing a lot of quiet lying. When you picture a crash, you picture a fender bender, metal crumpling, a bad day. This is not that. This stage is going to reach the moon, moving at around 5,400 miles an hour. 8,700 kilometers an hour, that's roughly 7 times the speed of sound. Try to actually feel that number. At that speed, you could cross the entire United States, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, in about 27 minutes. Now shrink that down to a single point of contact with solid rock. All of that speed, all of that motion, arriving in an instant with nowhere to go. And it's heavy. About 4,000 kilograms. Think of a large truck. Not a toy. Not a satellite the size of a microwave. A genuine chunk of hardware with the mass of a vehicle you'd get out of the way of on the highway. You put those two things together, the mass and the speed, and you get energy. The kind of energy scientists measure in tons of TNT. This impact lands with something like 3 tons of TNT going off at once. That's a bomb. A real one. The kind of thing that leaves a crater and makes the ground jump. Except there's no warning whistle, no rising scream through the air, no cinematic streak across the sky. It's just going to be there, and then it's going to be gone. And where it was, there will be a brand new hole in the moon that wasn't there the day before. 3 tons of our garbage moving 7 times faster than sound, about to punch a fresh wound into the oldest familiar face in your night sky. And the moon is going to take it completely defenseless. Here's why. Number 3, the moon can't defend itself. Picture this exact same rocket stage aimed at Earth instead. You'd be fine. Genuinely. That's not comforting spin. That's physics. If this thing came screaming down toward you, it would hit our atmosphere first, and the atmosphere would tear it apart. All that air you never think about, the stuff you're breathing right now, would slam into the front of the rocket like a wall. It would heat up, it would glow, it would break into pieces and burn, and you'd look up and see a gorgeous fireball streaking across the sky, and you'd make a wish. And by the time it was over, most of it would be ash drifting down as dust. Earth has a shield. A soft, invisible, 100-mile-thick shield that catches almost everything the universe throws at us and never asks for thanks. The moon has nothing. There's no air up there. None. So there's no wall for the rocket to hit on the way in, no friction, no heat, no burning, no breaking apart, no slowing down. The stage keeps every single mile per hour of its speed all the way to the surface. The full hit, the whole bomb, delivered straight to bare rock with zero resistance, and because there's no air, there's no sound either. This is the part that gets me. On Earth, an explosion this size would be deafening. On the moon, it happens in total, perfect silence. The rock shatters, a spray of pale dust and debris blasts up off the surface, and because the moon's gravity is only about 1/6 of ours, that spray rises slow and high and floats almost gentle, like something out of a dream, before settling back down without a whisper. A 3-ton bomb goes off, and the loudest thing in the room is nothing at all. That's what the moon is. Not a tough gray rock that shrugs off punishment. A soft, exposed, airless target that keeps every scar forever, because it has no way to heal and no way to fight back. Now, you'd think a thing this dramatic would at least be a natural disaster. It isn't. We made it. And where it came from is going to feel almost personal. Number 4, it's the trash from a mission you celebrated. Here's the twist you didn't see coming. This rocket isn't from some secret weapons test. It isn't from a reckless launch that went wrong. It's the leftover from a mission you probably cheered for, if you heard about it at all. A good one. A hopeful one. Remember those 2 little landers on top, the ones that were the real story? One of them was built by a company trying to prove that private industry can softly land on the moon. The other flew halfway around the world, from a team overseas chasing the same dream. Both of them were the shiny, inspiring, humanity-reaching, outward kind of headline. The kind that makes you feel for a second like the future is actually arriving. And it was arriving. The landers were the point. Everybody watched the landers. Everybody held their breath for the landers. Nobody watched this part. The rocket stage that lifted them up and let them go is the part nobody claps for. It did its job perfectly, and the moment it was done, it became something worse than useless. It became trash. Weightless, forgotten, floating trash with nowhere to be. That's the quiet, uncomfortable truth sitting under this whole story. Every time we do something wonderful in space, we leave something behind. The triumph and the garbage come from the exact same launch. You can't have the landers without the empty stage. The better we get at reaching the moon, the more dead machinery we scatter along the way. So, the thing about to hammer into the moon next week isn't a monster from the dark. It's the receipt for a mission we were proud of. Coming due. And what happens when it finally lands? Honestly, we're not even sure we'll get to see it. Number 5, scientists have never seen this happen in daylight. You would think a 3-ton bomb hitting the moon would put on a show. A flash. A puff. Something you could point a telescope at and watch live. The way you'd watch fireworks. Maybe. Maybe not. And the reason is stranger than you'd guess. When a rock hits the moon and it flashes, we usually catch that flash on the moon's night side, the dark part. A bright pinprick of light against total blackness is easy to see, even from here. Astronomers watch for those little flashes all the time. But this rocket is going to hit the part of the moon that's in daylight. The lit up, glowing, bright gray part. And trying to spot a single flash of impact against a surface that's already blindingly bright is like trying to see a camera flash go off inside the sun. The light of the crash could just vanish into the glare, completely swallowed, as if it never happened. It gets worse. The spot it's aiming for sits right on the edge of the moon, as we see it from here. The very rim. From the ground, that edge is squashed and low and hard to look at straight on. So the one impact we've predicted down to the day, the one we've been warned about in advance, might happen with no human eyes able to confirm it in the moment. There's a spacecraft already circling the moon that may swing over the site later and photograph the fresh crater from above. Days later, maybe weeks, a before picture and an after picture, and a new hole that appears in between. That might be all we get. A quiet confirmation long after the fact that yes, it happened right where he said it would. Sit with how odd that is. This is supposedly front page news, a known object, a known time, a known target, and there's a real chance not one person on Earth actually watches it land. We'll just wake up and it'll be done. And if that sounds too strange to be true, it's happened before. And last time, it left something we still can't explain. Number 6. This already happened once. Back on March 4th, 2022, another dead rocket stage did exactly this. It came out of a long-forgotten orbit and slammed into the far side of the moon, the side we never see from Earth. When a spacecraft later found the impact site and photographed it, everybody expected one crater. One object, one hole. Simple. That's not what was there. There were 2 craters side by side, overlapping like a figure 8 stamped into the dust, each one about 29 meters across and roughly the same size as each other. And that, right there, is a genuine mystery, because a single rocket stage should not make 2 matching holes. To punch twin craters like that, you need 2 heavy masses spaced apart, hitting at almost the same moment, which means that rocket wasn't empty. It was carrying something. Something extra, bolted on or tucked inside, that nobody ever told us about. To this day, no one has publicly explained what that second mass was, and the identity of the rocket itself is its own little horror story. When it was first spotted, the experts said it was a SpaceX Falcon 9 stage. Case closed, except it wasn't. A closer look said no, actually, this is a Chinese booster, from a mission that launched back in 2014, and the country whose rocket it appeared to be publicly said it wasn't theirs. So let that land for a second. A large object hit the moon. We couldn't agree on who built it. We couldn't explain why it left 2 craters instead of 1. And we still can't say for certain what it was carrying. That's the company this next impact keeps. We like to imagine that up there, somebody is keeping careful track of every piece of hardware, who owns it, what's on it, where it's going. The double crater is proof that we're not, and that we're going to keep finding these surprises, one fresh hole at a time, which brings up a number that changes this whole story. Number 7, we've already dumped 200 tons of junk up there. Here's where this stops being about one rocket, because this isn't the first thing we've left on the moon. It's not the 100th. Right now, sitting on the lunar surface, there is something like 200 tons of human-made stuff. Dead spacecraft, crashed rocket stages, broken landers that tipped over on touchdown, rovers that ran out of power and froze in place, flags, cameras, tools, and it's not all noble either. Up there, among the science equipment and the historic hardware, are bags of human waste left behind by astronauts, a couple of golf balls somebody hit for fun, and even a small stack of $2 bills. The moon isn't a pristine, untouched wilderness anymore. It's part monument, part museum, and part landfill. We've been doing this for a long time. The very first object we ever crashed into the moon on purpose went up in the 1950s. Since then, we've slammed spent rocket stages into it deliberately, just to make the ground shake so we could listen to the vibrations and learn what's inside. In 2009, we fired a stage into a crater near the South Pole, hard enough to blast 350 tons of moon dust up into space, all so we could look at the plume and check it for water. So when this rocket hits next week, understand what it actually is. It's not a shocking break from how we treat the moon. It's completely normal. It's one more piece added to a pile we've been building quietly for the better part of a century. The only difference this time is that somebody happened to notice it coming and told us the date. And once you see the pile instead of the single rock, the obvious question shows up and refuses to leave. Who's in charge of any of this? The answer is nobody. And that's not a figure of speech. Number 8, nobody is in charge of cleaning any of it up. You'd assume there are rules. There's a treaty, sure, an old one from 1967 that basically says, if you launch something and it breaks somebody's stuff, you're on the hook for the damage. That's it. That's the whole safety net. It's about who pays if there's an accident. It says nothing, not one word, about actually cleaning up after yourself. There is no space garbage truck. There is no agency whose job is to go collect the dead rockets drifting between here and the moon. There's no lost and found, no impound lot, no cleanup crew. The entire vast region of space between Earth and the moon has no cop on the beat. Things go up, things get abandoned, and then they just drift. For years. Until one day, one of them stops drifting and hits something. And remember who caught this one. Not a control room full of officials. One independent astronomer with his own software. That is the early warning system, a single person paying attention. If he hadn't been watching, we would have found out about this impact the way we've found out about the double crater. After. By accident, by stumbling on the hole. That's the real headline hiding inside this story. It's not just that a rocket is going to hit the moon, it's that a rocket is going to hit the moon, and there is no adult in the room. Nobody planned for it. Nobody's responsible for it. Nobody's cleaning it up. We are treating the space around another world exactly like a road with no speed limit, no license plates, and no police. And we're acting surprised when something crashes. Now scale that up, because we are about to put people back on that surface. Number 9. The next crew has to land in this mess. For decades, all of this was easy to ignore. The junk was just sitting there, and nobody was going back, so who cares? That's over. We are going back, and soon with people, and not to some random spot. The next crews are aiming for the moon's south pole because that's where the water ice is hiding, frozen in the shadows of deep craters, and water is everything. Water is drinking. Water is air. Water is rocket fuel. Whoever controls that ice controls the future of everything we do up there, so everyone is aiming for the same small handful of places, not the whole moon, a few precious spots. And into those exact spots, we are flying crewed landers full of human beings at the same time that the traffic between Earth and the moon is getting busier than it has ever been. More missions, more landers, more rockets, which means more dead stages left drifting and more fresh craters appearing without warning. Think about what that means for the people we send. They have to bring a fragile lander down softly onto a surface that is increasingly covered in scattered metal and brand new holes, in a region where everybody's crowding in at once. A hazard nobody's mapping. Debris nobody's tracking. Craters that weren't there last year. The garbage stops being an abstract problem the second there's a person inside the spacecraft trying to land near it. This dead rocket hitting the moon next week isn't just a weird bit of space trivia, it's a preview. It's the universe showing us, in advance, exactly the kind of thing that's going to be sitting in the way when we try to go back. And here's the part that should keep you up. We can't reliably tell you where the next one is going to come down. Number 10, we can't reliably say where the next one hits. Even for this impact, the one we've supposedly nailed down, the details keep shifting. The exact minute, the exact spot, they come with a margin of error, and that margin only shrinks as more measurements trickle in during the final days. We are refining our guess about a thing we've known about for weeks right up until it hits, and this is the one we caught, the one somebody happened to be watching. Now play it forward. We are launching more into space every single year, more companies, more countries, more rockets, more missions to the moon and past it. Every one of them leaves something behind. Every abandoned stage becomes another quiet object in another forgotten orbit, drifting, waiting on its own private schedule, to eventually come down somewhere. Most of them nobody's tracking, nobody ran the numbers, nobody knows the date. They're out there right now, dead and silent. And one by one, over the coming years, they are going to hit the moon. And we will find most of the craters the same way we found the double one. By surprise. Long after. The moon is turning into a slow-motion shooting gallery. We are the ones firing. We have no aim, no schedule we're keeping track of, and no scoreboard. And we're about to move in and live right in the middle of the targets. So next week, when this rocket comes down and it barely makes the news, remember that the crash was never really the story. The story is that we've quietly started bombarding another world with our leftovers. We can't say who's next or where or when, and almost nobody is treating that like it matters. The scariest part isn't the impact coming in a few days, it's that in a few years, there will be so many of them, we'll have stopped bothering to count.